Hey guys, welcome back. Well, it's a deep dive Monday, and today we're going to be looking at Keyshot 8, the brand new Keyshot 8, and then we're going to be looking at a thing called themes, and that is very much a photography related topic, so I'm really psyched about that. Now, if you know my channel, you know that I'm always going on and on about how important photography is for 3D artists, and it's also a really cool medium, okay? Now, because people want to have photorealistic rendering, you need to have elements that allow you to do that, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Now, before we do that, I want to do a huge shout out to Chaz, to Danny, and to Arise for the simple reason that they are my first three benefactors for my new GoFundMe campaign. Now, what is that about? Well, my second channel, Image Tutorials 2, was always about, Premiere Pro and After Effects and stuff like that. I completely revamped it, and it's going to be all about photography and nothing but photography. So Lightroom, Photoshop, anything photo related. Now, this is going to be something for 3D artists and for photographers alike, of course. And the reason that I set up the GoFundMe page is because I'm very cool with investing another day of my week in doing this pro bono, because YouTube is not monetized and no other income there. However, camera gear is crazy, crazy, crazy expensive. So if you can find it in your heart to help me out there, that would be awesome. And if not, love you anyway. Okay, let's get to today's video. Here we go. Right guys, well we're in Keyshot 8 Pro as you can see, and we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart because Leidschendam added all sorts of photographic goodies into Keyshot. And I'm really happy about it because if you know my channel, you know I always go on and on about how important photography is for 3D artists, and now we can actually prove it. So first of all, why is photography so important for 3D artists? Well, if you are into photorealistic rendering because you were doing product visualizations, interiors, architectural visualizations or whatnot, you want it to look realistic, okay? Now, what the new features in Keyshot 8 allow you to do is to create renders that basically look like they've been made with a camera. That's the idea, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. Before we do that, there's one little question that I received that I'll quickly answer, and that is how to change the color of the user interface in Keyshot. Well, that's pretty easy. You just go up to Edit. You're going to go to Preferences, and here you have the option to change theme from light to dark, and the whole thing will turn black. If that's something you like, you can do that. I do not want that personally, so I'm going to go back to light, okay? So let's close that out. And right here I have a scene that has been provided by Keyshot. It's a demo scene, and I'm going to do that so you guys can follow along if you have Keyshot yourselves, and we're all working on the same scene. Okay, so where did I get that scene? Very simple. Hit W on your keyboard, which will bring up this menu. Go to Demo Scenes and click on this guy down here, and I'll just redo that. Okay, so it's loaded again, so we're all on the same page. And now that this is loaded, we're going to look at the topic of the day and the tab of the day, and that is over here on the right, and it's called Image. Okay. Now, if we click on that, you can see that for this scene right here, there are two image styles. One is called Studio, and one is called Interior. Just above that, you see the resolution. So there's a width, there's a height, and there's a preset button. And you can go in here and let's say if you got a landscape image of an environment, you can choose a resolution. Same for portrait or maybe custom. But we're going to leave this alone for now, okay? All right, so multiple image styles. Now, what does that mean? Well, right now the interior one is selected, okay? But what if I click on the studio one? What you'll see is the backdrop disappears. We now have a default white studio backdrop, and that's pretty cool. But let's say I want to create my own. How do I do that? Well, two options. The top button on the left here will allow me to create a default basic new image style that I can then populate with settings. Or I can, for example, take this interior one and click on the second button and make a copy. And I'm going to do that. Okay. So there you go, image style 1. I'm going to click on the little lock on the right to open that up. And as you can see, the lock popped open. We now have settings down here. And I can double click and let's call this something very original. Let's do a new test. There you go. Okay, so now we're working on this one right here. Now keep in mind that this is a non-destructive workflow, which is kind of important because if you're working for a customer and they don't like what you've done, you need to be able to go back easy, right? Okay, so non-destructive. So that means that you're not touching your original render, you're basically tweaking it to make a copy of your original render that looks different. That's, I think, a good way to explain it. Okay, so we got that. Now, what can we do here? Down here you have a button where you can click on basic or photographic. Now, obviously, I'm going to click on the one on the right, photographic, because that's what the whole thing is about. We're going to scroll all the way up, and we're going to start at the top here where it says tone mapping. Now, if you do anything with photography, it's possible that you have worked with Lightroom in the past, Adobe Lightroom. Well, if you have, then you basically know all of these settings. But I'm going to go through them one by one so you know what we're talking about and you can follow along even if you haven't, okay? Right, so exposure. Is your photograph too light or too dark? Now, if I move to the left, it will become quite dark. If I move to the right, it will become quite bright. We're not going to do that far. Let's keep it somewhere in the middle. And as you can see, while I'm playing with that slider, the histogram down here changes accordingly. Okay, so I can move that and move that. So leave that alone. Then the white balance. Well, the white balance typically is a representation of, I would say, the color and temperature of the light whenever you are creating the photo. So, for example, 5,000 degrees Kelvin is, let's say, midday light, which is typically kind of white. However, if you want to have your render look like something that has been done in the late evening or early morning, you might want to change your white balance, okay? So when I move this to the left, sorry, you'll see that the color changes and it starts to look something more like a late afternoon shot instead of a midday shot. And if you push it further to the right, you will get more of a bluish tint, which kind of represents, I would say, maybe a sci-fi scene, where when you push it to the left, it is more something, I would say more romantic, I guess, or friendly, okay? All right, let's leave that alone. We're gonna keep that somewhere around here, and we're gonna look at contrast. Well, contrast kind of does the same thing a little bit in the sense that a high contrast makes a scene look very harsh and hard, where a low contrast makes it look softer and friendlier. And again, that is kind of a creative decision that you have to make. There's no right or wrong, really. If you like it, I would say it's good, okay? Now, moving down, the curve. This is our histogram, like I mentioned. If you have a DSLR, you will have a representation of this histogram on your camera as well. And it basically tells you where the light and dark areas are in your photograph. Now, the curve here, and you got these little dots that you can grab and push around, for example, like this, allows you to play with light values, midtones, and shadows, okay, and highlights. So instead of tweaking the curve, I'm going to use the sliders instead. So I'm going to use the shadows here, and I usually just do the full range so I can see what will happen, and then I decide on where I want to be, and I don't want to do too much here. Midtones, you can see that has a big effect, so we're going to be careful with that. Maybe slightly to the left. Light value, you can see the tiles in the kitchen are blown out, so we're going to push that back. And maybe slightly to the left here. You got your white values, and see what happens when you push it all the way back. Of course, you wouldn't want that. We'll push that up a little bit, maybe like so. And then highlights. So highlights in your scene, not a huge effect there. And you can see in the histogram, the reason why there's not a huge effect is that our line is moving up and down, where there's really not a lot going on in the histogram right here, okay? So that's why you don't see a huge effect. But we'll leave that somewhere around here. Okay, then next, color. So we played with midtones and lights and whatnot. What about color? Well, color is very important as well for obvious reasons. When we tick on that box, we have the option to play with the saturation and the vibrance. Now, saturation can be a very important factor when it comes to setting the mood of your render for the purpose that you're rendering it for. So let's say we're going to pop this way up, the saturation, make it extremely bright and vibrant, okay? Now, when you do that, it typically represents something that is very, happy, bright, maybe somewhat childish. You would do this kind of thing, for example, if you are rendering a new toy. Now, let's say you are rendering a scene from a war movie. You would desaturate that quite a bit, almost pull all the color out of it, and do the same with farbins. Again, creative decision, up to you, depending on your scene and what you're creating it for, right? Okay, then bloom and vignetting. Well, I don't use bloom ever, actually, but it's there, so you can. So you can turn that on, and you can increase or decrease the intensity of the bloom. Also the radius, so how big of a circle is affected, if you will, and then the threshold. But like I said, I don't use that. Okay, vignetting, however, I do. Let's turn that on. Come on. Yep, there you go. And what vignetting basically is best explained by having a round lens on a camera that has a square or rectangular center inside, if you have a digital camera, okay? So because of the fact that the lens is round and the center is square, in the corners you will have areas where there's really not a lot of light going on. Now that's called vignetting, and it can be something that kind of emphasizes your topic, in this case the water kettle. So by increasing that vignetting strength and by making those corners darker, you're basically pointing the viewer's eyes towards the subject of the photo, which is the kettle. So I don't want it to be that strong, but a little bit goes a long way. So let's do something like this, and I'm happy. Now, if you want to change the color of that vignetting for some reason, you can. You can click on this black right here, take the little color picker, and if I were to, for example, choose this blue, the vignetting color would turn to blue. Now, I don't think that's appropriate for this scene at all, but you could, but I'm not going to accept this. I'm going to click on cancel, but just so you know, right? Okay, then the next one, chromatic aberration. That is something, if you are not into photography, it's possible you never heard of it. But I'll try to explain. Chromatic aberration is usually something you don't want in a photograph. However, the fact that it is there kind of proves the point that it's a photograph. So if you have a 3D render and you want it to look like a photograph, it's an option to kind of add a little bit of chromatic aberration there, okay? So what is it? Well, typically if you have a very dark object that is very thin and has a very contrasting light background, for example, a little twig on a tree against a really bright sky, you would see a purplish color glow around it, and that's something that photographers typically try to get rid of. But like I said, if this is something you want to add to kind of prove that it's photorealistic, then that's what you can do. And simply just tick on that box, and then you can push that up. But in this case, in this scene, there's not a lot that has that has that feel, so it wouldn't happen that much, but you can do that. All right, so what else have we got? Layers. And this one is pretty important because we've seen an example of this before. If I choose to click on background color, what happens is this. There you go. We've seen this with our studio drop. So you can have a very quick scene setup where you have a nice white background. Or you can go in and change the color of that background. So how cool is that, right? So we'll do that. Actually, we won't because it's kind of a weird color, but you can, okay? And then use front plate. Now, you got the Keyshot logo going on here. Let's say you don't want that. You can turn that on or off. So you can add your own logo, style or whatnot. So if you are working for a customer and you want to show them something that you have made for them, you can put your own PNG logo up there and so forth. Okay, so that's what you can do, and then you can have the opacity go up or down. If you want it to be really faint, you push it to the left, and if you want it to be really strong, you push it up to the right. Now, that is basically it when it comes to these image styles. So please, if you have questions about Keyshot 8 and you want me to do a video on them, let me know in the comments, and I will be happy to do that. And that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys check out my GoFundMe page. That would mean the world to me. And that said, thank you so much for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye. This video has been made possible by soloanimation.com.